Welcome to Dualshock'd, the Brotherhood of Geeks PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 56, where today we're going to go ahead and talk about the Timesplitters game is probably going to be returning because of Deep Silver rejiggering their studio. We also found out that The Last of Us Part 2 has a PS5 patch update. Netflix is looking to make more video games, and maybe Starfield, or probably Starfield is going to be an Xbox exclusive. But with our PlayStation conversation, the biggest news that has been going on throughout the week is the Palestine Israel conflict and how the video game media has kind of come into that regarding to IGN and their postings of it. We're going to talk about that in our main topic. But with all of that being said, I'm one of your hosts, Brett J. Rasmussen, and over here, I got one of my co-hosts.
You got Spectre.
And over here, I got my returning guest.
Smart Mark B.
Yeah, let's go, man. Yeah, how you guys doing? How you doing, Spectre?
I'm doing fantastic. I am. I had to temporarily table my my near replicant playthrough. I'm flying through Mass Effect Legendary Edition right now. I am almost done with the first game. I'm ready. I'm almost ready to be at the review stage because I want to do a review for it. I wanted to get through the first game or most of the first game because that was the one that was, of course, most changed by the updates in this version. So my initial thoughts are pretty positive. But I will have a full review for that, and then otherwise, I will get back to Nier and. I have actually. I've been doing a lot of stuff. Actually, I have been playing Battlefield 5 as well too, which has been a very interesting game to visit. Now 2 years after its release, and after basically I boycotted it. I only recently got it because it was part of the PlayStation Plus. So I have some thoughts on that I'll share eventually. Maybe I'll do a short mini review on that. And then eventually I will do a little review of video for my Vita collection as well too. So I have a lot of stuff on my plate. There's a lot going on. But what about you? What have you been playing?
We'll go to you, Mark. What have you been doing? What's been going on with you?
I got a couple irons in the fire. I'm going to be building a brand new gaming PC. I just got all the pieces for. Absolute unit of a machine. Just MSI Meg Unify 570 motherboard, 5900 AMD Ryzen processor. I got my hands on a 39.
Whoop! There you go. What are you there, buddy?
Oh, some technical difficulties.
That's totally fine. We're here. We're doing it. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. Mark, you still there with me? Oh no! Oh.
He was about to. I think he's about to talk about
Yeah, there we go. Oh, hey, there we go. Here you
Did I drop out?
Yeah, you did. It's okay. Don't worry. It's totally fine. No, that's totally fine.
No, that's cool. And technical difficulties.
It's totally fine.
I building a brand new big gaming PC. I just got all the parts for.
You were just talking about the graphics card.
Yeah,
What'd you get?
I got a 3090 Founders Edition.
Ooh.
Oh, holy cow! Did you have
You don't want to know what I had to do.
I was gonna say, did you rob somebody? How do you even get one?
Dirty, nasty things, man.
Some secret meeting at the airport with briefcases of money involved.
But man, I got all the stuff and building a PC. Outside of that, been playing Destiny and Resident Evil Village. I'm still waiting to be scared, but the game is sufficiently horny.
Of course.
I'm going to be putting together a review for Resident Evil. And I'm thinking about putting that together when I'm about 3/4 of the way through the game. I'm in the notes taking stage right now. And I also want to I have a think piece that I'm kind of gestating on about the narrative structure of games as a service games,
Ooh.
and sort of the evolution of the serial as it evolved from old film shorts into comic books into this new, it's a video game but it never ends kind of
Mm-hmm.
ongoing serialized storytelling and how it's changed over the years. So I got a couple irons in the fire and things I'm trying to put together for for the channel, and hopefully with the advent of this PC building, I'll be able to be a lot more nimble and a lot more dexterous with how I maneuver through stuff. But yeah, I'm having a good time
Good.
playing my couple strong video games, and just we're seeing how everything's working. Now you can stop deflecting and to all your co-hosts and tell us what you've been playing, bro.
There we go. So for me, I am so everyone here is doing reviews. For me, I am finishing up on Returnal, which is great fun, and I've pretty much
You
said
want to
that.
Returnal it?
Shut up, Spectre. Um, I'm very much enjoying Returnal, and I know Mark. He's been playing Destiny. I've been playing Destiny with him. That's kind of been my reaction game. I've talked about it here multiple times with you, Spectre. Um, but I've also been kind of working on trophy hunting. Me and my brother have went through Brutal Legend. We went ahead and booted up our old PS3s, and we went ahead and boosted the multiplayer trophies. But I also went ahead and started kind of went back into Brutal Legend because Brutal Legend is such a fun game. I love just the style, and Double Fine is so good, and Tim Schafer is a crazy madman, and oh man, I love Brutal Legend. Jack Black is my spirit animal. Yes, I love everything about Brutal Legend. So I was because my brother was going for platinums, and he's like, I need these multiplayer trophies. Go ahead and boot this up with me. I'm like, okay, and I went ahead and I forgot how much. I'm like, oh my god, this game is so fun. This game is so good. Regardless of whatever reviews came out years ago for that. So I played Brutal Legend, which is great. And yeah, just been playing kind of a bunch of other things. And then I myself have been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. We have a lot in store coming up in the future, especially around E3 time. We have a lot of things planned for E3, which is only in about, we're almost at the end of May. And E3 is going to be right around the corner. Regardless with this being all digital, and even with Sony not being at E3 or being a part of the E3 proper, we're going to get a lot of stuff. And the Summer Game Fest, which is Jeff Keighley's thing, I think that's going to be much more exciting. E3 is going to be great and stuff, but Jeff Keighley, last year with Jeff Keighley with his Summer Game Fest, where we got to see the new Unreal Engine, the announcement of the new Crash game, and Tony Hawk, and all that kind of stuff. That was great. So I'm actually I'm very excited for the beginning of June, when we kind of get all of these new video game reveals, announcements, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about how it's all gonna go. It's sort of a secondary shot in the arm for E3, because it kind of just been moving in this whole all these game publishing companies and developers are beginning to realize that they didn't need it. But with the advent of of a worldwide pandemic and all that stuff, we're now just all starving for that content. So
Yeah.
we're just gonna see how everything works out.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely miss. I've talked before. I miss the old. I miss the pageantry of it. I miss the old big presentations and reveals and stuff like that. There was something.
Yeah.
Some of the magic I think has been lost from E3. in the last 3 or 4 years or so since they've since it's radically changed. I'm fortunate that I was able to go to E3 back in 2011 and actually kind of experience that firsthand and kind of see it, in its kind of classic form. But yeah, I mean, it's still an exciting time. Don't get me wrong; it's still an exciting time of the year. There's a lot of reveals and things going on, but I kind of miss the old, like, okay, here's the day for, here's the day for this, and we're gonna focus on this, and here's these big reveals, and the live audience stuff like that. Now it just feels so like sterilized, and there's it's very pre-planned, and there's less that can go wrong. There's less improv to it. I just I don't know. But still an exciting time though.
Oh yeah, I mean
the danger's gone.
Yeah, it really is. And it's still exciting to see, like, okay, we're gonna get a bunch of announcements, and we really do need a lot of announcements because I don't know about you guys, but I don't have anything. I don't think I have a single game like on reserve aside from like a Warhammer game, which myself and like 5 other people are gonna play, and it comes out next week. So beyond that, I don't have anything reserved.
Is that Vermintide but 40K?
It's Stormground. It's like a new strategy game in the Age of Sigmar universe of Warhammer, and I like any game that lets me play as Chaos. I appreciate. So I will be checking that out. I guess. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I'm a big Warhammer nerd. So when I find out about new Warhammer stuff, I'm like, excuse me. Like,
yeah, no, I mean it kind of flew under my radar, but I saw it like at like upcoming games to pre-order. I'm like, whoa, like this actually. And I watched the trailer for it, like I'm okay. I'm actually checking this out. But once I get that, I mean, I have nothing reserved, like literally nothing, like no video games reserved or things that I'm looking forward to. So it's like we kind of need some like new, something new here to.
I kind of need this Elden Ring reveal.
Yeah, oh yeah. And like the thing is, like even for me, like I think the farthest out pre-order that I have is Deathloop, but only because that got pushed back. And then I there's Ratchet and Clank. There's a few other games there's Final Fantasy Integrate, which is getting the PS5 update. There's a few other games, but like out of the big ones, like Deathloop has been pushed back into the fall, and then Ratchet and Clank comes out in June, and that's about it. So no, I do agree when it like what's the next big thing, and who knows, we may hear about Horizon Forbidden West could come out this year, or the new God of War Ragnarok, whatever the next God of War game would be. So, but yeah. But with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and begin with what we always begin with, News of the Nation! There you go. Yes. Thank you. I'm glad someone knows what's going on. All right, let's begin. First topic is that Starfield is an Xbox exclusive, according to Jeff Grubb from VentureBeat. So, on Jeff Grubb's Twitter, pretty much what he said, he does freelance work for VentureBeat, and pretty much this is what it says. On his Twitter, Starfield is exclusive to Xbox and PC, period. This is me confirming that. Go write the story. And he's responding to a tweet who said, I had a bunch of messages and super chats about Starfield today where people were saying that at Jeff Grubb said that it wasn't exclusive or whatever. So I figured I'd tweet this out and have Jeff clear the air since it seems what he says gets twisted by the people. And that's Rand Al Thor 19, which is also there. He says, go write the story. I blame Tim Geddes and Greg Miller, Game Over Greggy, for infecting me with their doubt on Gamecast. I should have listened to Vicious 696. He's also at Kinda Funny on my shoulder, but yes, I have since confirmed this. I thought I was ending a discourse, not starting one, so on and so on. And then someone asked him, who are you? And he goes, I'm Jeff, and and y'all, I don't mean to be, I don't mean I'm confirming it for Microsoft. I mean, I've confirmed it in terms of my reporting. And then I have an article from WCCF Tech, just pretty much talking about this tweet and kind of piecing together the little breadcrumbs that have been left behind over the past few years or so. So yeah, I know you, Mark, are excited for Starfield, so I'll let you kind of begin. So what do you think about this?
I am pretty excited for Starfield because it's one thing that gets my motor running. It's space and narrative adventures in space. Um, so it's I think that it would be kind of a no-brainer. You don't pay that many billions of dollars to let everyone have a slice of your cake, especially when you're like pulling ahead in terms of value proposition
Mm-hmm.
for your audience. You know,
Yeah.
Game Pass is an incredible service. And I know the last time I was on the show, I ended up talking about that when I went on my whole Sony by Capcom rant. Sony by Capcom. Um, but I think that this it's a new IP. Bethesda has historically struggled establishing new IPs, especially like the Softworks, core Bethesda team. They just kind of been making the loop of Fallout Elder Scrolls for
Mm-hmm.
what seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
So I don't see why Microsoft wouldn't want to lock down new potentially console defining IP from a giant studio when the
Mm-hmm.
purpose in which they bought that studio was to be able to effectively combat Sony's uncanny ability to generate AAA console defining IP.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely do agree with this. Spectre, what do you think about this kind of being only on Xbox? Like, this is pretty much like all, if not official, that this is only going to be on Xbox/PC. What are your opinions
No
about that?
brainer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much of an opinion on it because I mean, yeah, kind of like we were saying, and they've really Bethesda's really had a hard time breaking out of the Fallout Elder Scrolls loop
Yeah.
that they've been in for the last basically the last 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean they have had other successes that they published. They had a great reboot of Wolfenstein that was fantastic with New Order, and then they almost immediately destroyed and ruined it to the point where no one. I mean, I don't think we're even going to see that franchise continue until there's like maybe another reboot. At this point, it's been so raked over the coals. You had Dishonored, which was kind of the same thing, where you had a great initial game, and then Dishonored 2 and Death of the Outsider came along, and they basically eviscerated their a franchise that was in the making there. Prey, I didn't really play much of Prey, but from my understanding, it was actually pretty good. So there's one example of
Mm-hmm.
another
Was
game that
pretty
they.
good.
Yeah, so I mean, it is possible for them to make a interesting IP, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it actually turns out. We don't. The thing with Starfield is we know so little about it. We know
Mm-hmm.
basically the title and a general idea of what the game will be about, and that's it.
I think.
There's not really much to go on for this game, and I mean, for me, obviously, I mean, like I said, I can play it on PC if I need to. This is not a reason. I still don't see a reason to ever buy an Xbox, but
Mm-hmm.
it's I don't know. It's hard for me to really have a opinion on the game until we can actually see more of it. But I just know based off of the track record. I mean, that's what I do. Whenever there's a game coming out, I mean, it's only logical. Whenever there's a game coming out or a movie coming out, your first question should be, okay, who's making it, and what is their track record?
Mm-hmm.
And with this, Bethesda does not have a great track record for for making, for releasing new IPs, or at least keeping, or new or making new franchises that are successful. So I don't know. We'll wait and see what actually becomes of it and what they actually produce. Once we actually start seeing some gameplay, my opinion will start to form on the game. But for now, is it like a death blow or anything like that? No, not really. I mean, it's a big IP, but I mean, it's who knows? I mean, we'll see how it actually shapes up to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the reason why people are so excited for Starfield, one, it's a new IP, and it's sci-fi, and it's coming from Bethesda, but I think it's more of that Bethesda made Skyrim, Bethesda made Fallout. If they're gonna take that kind of like RPG and put it in like pretty much make Skyrim but in space, I think that's what makes people more excited for this. Because that wasn't kind of. Go ahead.
Pardon my interruption, but
You're good. No, you're good.
There have been some loose talks about what the game kind of is forming to be.
Mm-hmm.
There are some rumors that it was supposed to be coming out this year and all kinds of other stuff, and that was very swiftly debunked.
Mm-hmm.
But what was sort of mentioned is that the game is shooting for the sort of middle ground between an Outer Worlds and a No Man's Sky, with what is called, and I quote, Bethesda DNA. So, that, or the Bethesda flair. So I'm assuming that it is going to be very much so their cup of tea with producing a giant single player RPG, but with some interplanetary travel and that type of branching dialogue. So there is kind of like a loose infrastructure of it, or at least that's being talked about. Obviously, none of it can be confirmed until we see some. And in this post cyberpunk world, even seeing something isn't necessarily indicative of what you will get.
No.
So it's definitely now it's like I have to play it. But I think that this was more like those old trains, where you could pull the levers and change the tracks.
Yeah.
And trains would get sent to different places. I feel like this was like that, but for hype trains. It's just like oh, we're just shifting the levers to sort of create interest based on goodwill with us getting this new IP from this studio that you've already. Please be excited now. I feel like that's and really nowadays that's really all you need to do at this point. So I'm that's the reason why even all the way up until somebody real high up in Xbox, or whether it's Phil Spector or whoever, just go, hey, it's ours and it's on Game Pass and everyone else can sit and spin.
I
get an Xbox or buy it on PC. I even until someone says that, I think that it's an absolute no-brainer. Why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they?
It does it makes far more sense for that to new IP only on Xbox, and so that way you have to get an Xbox. And the thing is, for you, Spectre, you're like, I don't need an Xbox, I can just play it on my PC. That's still money for Microsoft. It doesn't matter because that's on Windows. So that's still money that's going to get made on their end. That's why Microsoft was able to spend $7.5 billion to buy ZeniMax, to buy Bethesda. Where unlike Sony's most profitable business arm is PlayStation. They don't have that kind of money to throw around. So that's why for PlayStation they're doubling down on the studios that they already have. And I do agree with you when we talked about Capcom and Evo, where, I think somehow, some way in the future, PlayStation could buy and maybe should buy Capcom, but I think it's even smarter for PlayStation. I think it's even smarter for PlayStation to go ahead and make just partnerships. Like, you do you. We're over here. You make exclusive for us, but you still are over here. You still get to be independent and do your thing, but you're just making a new game for us or whatever.
I feel like that would be a bit of a limp move in response. I own this now, and then your competition's like, well, hey, what if we were friends? Like, I don't have enough money to own you, but if we were friends.
But
like that's the same sort of
What's
thing
actually going to
happening.
be really interesting here is, Starfield's a new IP and everything, but what's really going to be interesting to see is how we know we're going to get Elder Scrolls 6 was announced. We know there's another Fallout game in development as well.
Yep.
So the real question will be, where for those games will those be possibly console exclusive then?
Yeah.
That's the real question. That's what I'm actually interested in, because that would be more of a game changer. That would be like, okay, this is now you feel like you're actually missing out to stuff. I mean, because I could, and even for Starfield, I can play Starfield on PC, but I would rather everything just be on the same console. It's just easier for me to deal with,
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's going to be the real.
Called a PC.
Yeah. Trust me, I love my PC. I mean, there's problems with PC, but I love my PC. I tend to play between PlayStation and PC, and occasionally dabble in Switch whenever there's something interesting on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I get
so
you.
I guess on the end, I guess for that, it's just we all have to wait and see. This feels like an appropriate move, but what's really going to be what's the carrot on the end of the stick is whether or not they're going to do the same with the Bethesda established franchises that have already been running for decades at this point.
I also do think that with the one thing I do maybe worry about is, like, if we look at how Microsoft, now mind you, this is now like the management has kind of shifted under Phil Spencer, and he's been running Xbox amazingly, kind of the revival, because the Xbox One could have killed that like brand. The Xbox One could have been the Dreamcast of for Microsoft. But Phil Spencer was able to turn the ship around, and it's thriving. The one thing I will have to worry about is that what we have seen in the past of how Microsoft runs their studios and what like making their games. Like, Gears 5 was good, but Halo 5 was just bland. You get Forzas upon Forzas. There's nothing really new. And I think the big thing with Microsoft is that they're buying all these studios because they can go on a shopping spree because they're using the assets and the knowledge from the people of those original studios to do it. But how can Xbox manage them? Where what we have seen with PlayStation is that the way PlayStation has managed all of their studios, all the PlayStation studios, is that like every year there is one, if not two, PlayStation exclusives that are in Game of the Year contender, and that, I believe, is probably even more important. Sales are, of course, the most important because money talks, but having that, like, God of War Game of the Year, Uncharted 4 Game of the Year, Horizon Zero Dawn Game of the Year, so on and so on and so on. These console-defining games. I very much am intrigued and excited to see how Microsoft, by buying these new studios, will manage these new studios and how they'll be run. And hopefully, we do get to see some really good games, these Game of the Year contenders coming from Microsoft. I would love to see that. Like, yeah, I'm a PlayStation fan, and this is a PlayStation podcast, but I'm not going to go ahead and be like, oh, Xbox, there better not be a good game coming from Xbox. Like, I would love to see that, because then that creates good competition between Xbox and PlayStation. But
yeah. Competition does oftentimes lead to better products across the board.
mm-hmm. But yeah, so I knew we were going to take some time on that, but let's go ahead and move on. Next topic is that a new EA studio is being made for open world games. So this article comes from GameIndustry.biz. And pretty much what this is that ex-Monolith VP Kevin Stevens will be starting a new EA studio. So pretty much what the article says. Electronic Arts Today, which the article was posted May 19th of 2021. Electronic Arts Today announced that it has tapped former Monolith Productions VP and studio head Kevin Stevens to head up a new studio in the Seattle area. The studio doesn't have a name yet, but it will be working to create an open-world action-adventure game. Stevens knows the genre well, having overseen Monolith Productions during development of Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. The move will also reunite Stevens with EA Senior VP and Group General Manager Samantha Ryan. Ryan was president of Monolith Productions in the late 90s, and the pair worked together at Monolith and its eventual parent, Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment. Quote, Kevin joining forces with Samantha and the incredibly talented teams at Electronic Arts adds even more depth to our creative collective, EA Chief Studios Officer Laura Meal said. Continuing the quote, Kevin is an exceptionally talented game developer leader, and we look forward to supporting him while he builds his team as someone known for his open-world action-adventure games. We know players will be eagerly awaiting more details on this new studio and its projects. Pretty much the open world action adventure genre is one of EA has long sought a foothold in from the 2007 acquisition of Mercenaries developer Pandemic and BioWare to the Godfather film adaptations to a reported open world Star Wars game that EA Vancouver was working on, which got canceled in 2019. And then it kind of talks more about how him coming in will help EA. But I'll just cut it there. So, what do you? I'll start with you, Spectre, on this. What do you think about EA kind of working on a studio that is built to make an open world game?
I think it sounds incredibly boring. Well, it does. I mean, what is every game that we play nowadays is an open world game. I miss the days of where we would have different genres and we'd have different things to play. Not every game needs to be a third person open world game with RPG mechanics. I think we can. There's more to the video game medium than that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it all depends on what they're actually going to be making with this, and yada yada. But, yeah, for me, it's like, I mean, when I hear open world game, it's just like, okay.
How about you, Mark? What do you think?
Well, I'm of two minds on it. One, yeah, I agree with Spectre. It's like, oh yeah, more third person, slightly over the shoulder open world games. Nice. But I guess to their credit, those Lord of the Rings, Shadows of series were pretty good, and there's also them moving in a pretty positive direction with Jedi Fallen Order, Star Wars Fallen Order.
Yeah.
So it's like they're showing signs that they're capable of making some entertaining games in that space. But anyone who talks to me for any prolonged period of time about my taste in video games knows that I am Mr. New IP. I love you showing me some brand new stuff I've never seen before. My favorite period of EA was when they were like, hey, here's Mirror's Edge, here's Dead Space. like where they're swinging for the fences for some other stuff that you just hadn't seen.
Yeah, that was like Mass Effect, Dragon Age, all of that. Yeah, like during the PS3, I
uh,
think. Yeah.
so like it was definitely like that's the type of announcement that would meaningfully get me excited. Where it's like, hey, we're gonna start taking some swings at some stuff that you've never really seen, or given some time to a studio to make something that they like before we kill them.
Yeah, pretty much, because that's
and
what EA does. Yep.
so, um, like, yeah, like the track record is better than other, we're making an offshoot studio to make blank,
Yeah.
announcements that have come in recent times. There's a bit more pedigree here, but I want more, something a bit more daring,
Yeah,
you
like
know.
yeah, no, I agree. The thing is that like I agree, and I think Ubisoft is like I love Ubisoft. I know we're talking about EA, but I kind of want to go off, and this reverts back to kind of what we've been talking about with regarding this. Ubisoft recently has just been making over the past, I would probably say maybe like 3, 4, 5 years. They've pretty much been making the same game. Like Assassin's Creed, which is one of my favorite video game franchises, or was one of my favorite video game franchises. It's not the Assassin's Creed that I fell in love with. It's not the social stuff. It's not the deep lore and story. It's now just, hey, we're in now. It's Vikings and you're an assassin. Do that, and it's Greece and all this, and it's a Witcher game, but watered down with microtransactions and quick, like time savers and all these different things because you need to hit power level and da. And then you have the Division, which is very generic now, and Rainbow
Which is a
Six.
shame because the Division launched exceptional.
Oh, like, but like,
Launch Division 2 was great, and then all of a sudden it just kind of melted.
yeah, like, and that's kind of what is like Watch Dogs Legion. Very like, I was excited for that game, but it's just okay. Um, Far Cry has become like I'm looking forward to the Far Cry 6. And I had fun in Far Cry 5, but it's now just here's a big map, go do everything on the big map. No, there's like where back in the day Ubisoft, like in the like '09, '10, like Ubisoft was one of my favorite, if not my favorite publisher outside of PlayStation exclusives. You had Prince of Persia, you had the original Assassin's Creed and Assassin's Creed 2, you had Splinter Cell, you had like the other Tom Clancy games and everything like that, but just over the past like 5 years, it feels like since Unity, at least when it comes to Assassin's Creed, ever since Assassin's Creed Unity, and then after, it's just become more bland. And again, it's another open world game that blah 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 blah. So I do agree with like, oh, it's another open world game that a big like the big publisher, Activision, EA, is making. So I very much am like, oh great, okay, another one, awesome, whatever. I am excited to see what Kevin does because I love Shadow of War. Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War are phenomenal games. Um, once Shadow of War got rid of the single player microtransactions, then it got amazing. That was the one gripe I had about it, but then they got rid of it, and now I'm a happy Brett. But again, it's another thing of we'll have to see what's there. And I mean, mind you, like as you said earlier, Spectre is like Mass Effect. Like all I've been hearing is good things about Mass Effect, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, the remaster of the trilogy. And even you're like,
yeah, I don't want to spoil too much of it so far. But
yeah,
yeah,
I know, but all I'm saying is like from what I've been seeing is that it's been great. Which is surprising, which is like, wow, really? A remaster? Oh, wow. But again, that's your job, Spectre. I won't go too far in, but no, I agree. But yeah, I think that's about it. Let's move on. Next topic is that Timesplitters is returning. So this is a pretty much a tweet from Deep Silver themselves. This is how we know that Timesplitters is returning. So from their tweet, from their own Twitter, a new Deep Silver studio is coming. Free radical design. And this is what it says. You asked, we listened. We have been working on plans to bring the Timesplitters franchise back to life and are pleased to let you know that we are setting up a new Deep Silver development studio to do just that. Free Radical Design is reforming and will be headed up by industry and Timesplitters veterans Steve Ellis and David Doak. This is an exciting first step in the process. Development on a new game has not yet started, and we will update you when we have more news to share. Which is great. That is great. Timesplitters is great fun from back in the day. Did any of you guys play that game back in the day?
Yes, I big fan of. Sorry. I'll jump in with my thoughts real quick, and I'll. Big fan of Timesplitters 2 in particular. That was a blast. I really it really got me into like the idea of like level editing and modding. Like if there was more games like that back then, I might have gotten like gone a different path in life and with but yeah, I really I don't know what it was about the way they handled their like map editing system in that game. It was just very intuitive. It was very user friendly, even on console. And I just had a blast making like custom maps and stuff like that. And that was just really, really fun. It was the single player was kind of bizarre, interesting. But I mean, for me, it was more so a multiplayer game that I played with my friends, and we would try to make like custom maps, and we'd probably spend more time making a map than we would actually play in it. It just was that's what I remember. So yeah, I mean, I'd be down to check it out, like a continuation of that.
Yeah. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I did in fact play Timesplitters. So I really like Timesplitters too. For me, I also played a fair chunk of multiplayer, but I also really appreciated the single player and its sort of sardonic, dry wit that it had. That a lot of the games at the time were like really sort of self-serious, and to see something be as irreverent and as funny as it was really refreshing. So I'm a guy that likes to laugh. So I'm interested on multiple fronts to see Timesplitters come back, man.
Oh yeah, and like I will
multiple fronts.
I will definitely say I didn't play, I don't think, as much Timesplitters as you two. I remember playing snippets of it over at my friend's house, but I don't have enough like memory. I don't really have as many memories of that game as probably you guys do. But I do remember how much fun Timesplitters was. That I do remember. And hearing this, I'm excited. Deep Silver is a really good studio, and I believe Deep Silver is the publisher of Saints Row, which is one of my favorite franchises. Like that game is so much fun. I could play that and just do stupid stuff. So in Deep Silver,
and Ride to Hell Retribution.
Hey man, I had fun with that. I had fun with that expansion. I had fun with that. That one was fun.
Wow, you
Oh wait! No! I was thinking Get Out of Hell. No, I'm wrong. Nope, I'm wrong. Nope. Because in my head, I didn't hear the words. Oh god, that game is bad. That game is horrible. No. Holy crap! No. Shut up. No. In my head, I thought Get Out of Hell. Like I was thinking, oh yeah, the Get Out of Hell expansion. Yeah, that was good. No, that game is terrible, horrible trash. F that game into oblivion. That game deserves to die a horrific death. F that game.
I mean, it did, but also look at all that praise you just heaped on Deep Silver and just took it all back.
Hey man, some studios can have their mess ups, and they can always go ahead and come back from it. That game, Oh, I don't. That's one of those games. That's one of those games where you just look at them and go, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, man.
Like, what are you doing? This don't make no sense. What? No. But regardless, like I'm excited to hear that Timesplitters is returning, and I definitely do want to go ahead and play that game whenever that comes out. It's probably not going to be for the next. It probably won't come out for the next like 2 to 3 years, probably, if not longer.
Yeah.
But that's going to be exciting. I'm excited to see where that goes.
And Lord knows they're very, like, user-friendly, multiplayer-focused, level editing, almost Quake-esque multiplayer game is just a thing that doesn't exist right now.
Mhm.
And boy, would be refreshing if we could get something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. But yeah, let's move on. Next topic is that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be getting a PS5 patch upgrade. I believe this is already live right now. But pretty much coming from the PlayStation blog, pretty much Last of Us Part 2 has been recognized with over 300 Game of the Year awards, an unprecedented achievement. We are super grateful to our community for your terrific support over the past year, including voting us at the BAFTA EE Game of the Year and the Golden Joystick Ultimate Game of the Year. And then they've received tons of mail. But pretty much what this patch will be doing is that once patch 1.08 for Last of Us Part 2 is installed on your PS5, you will find a toggle in the display options that allows you to choose between a frame rate target of 30 FPS or 60 FPS. This allows you to choose your preferred frame rate to complement the rest of the enhancements that are part of the PS5 backward compatibility with PS4 games, such as enhanced resolution, faster load times, and more. And then, like, it's just talking about how that. So pretty much you can up the frame rate to 60 frames per second, high resolution, that kind of stuff, which we've been getting a lot of these kind of things of PlayStation exclusives. God of War has this. Horizon Zero Dawn has this. Last of Us 1 has this. I believe the Uncharted games have it. So, yeah. I'll start with you, Mark. What do you think? I don't think we have actually talked about Last of Us Part 2. Like, I already know what Spectre thinks. I know what he thinks. He can't shut up about it. Me, I have a different opinion from him, but what do you think about one, this, and then two? Just a quick kind of your thoughts on Last of Us Part 2, because we've never heard about that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like it.
Well, screw both of you. Screw both of you.
I feel like it was a game that had the potential. Like it was a game told out of sequence that was not set up to be very narratively satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like everything that it sort of, every Chekhov's gun that it waved, it refused to fire because you got to subvert the audience expectation, and that type of thing. And like I've talked at length where I was, amongst friends where it's like, hey, if you just kind of take this section and move it over here, and that section and move it over there, and just kind of, without changing stuff within the context of the plot, but just changing how the audience experiences it, it all of a sudden changes your ability to perceive the game and its sort of narrative structure. And I'm a really big stickler for, like, if the star of your game is the story, then the story better be good. And the star of The Last of Us 2 was supposed to be the story, but ended up being the gameplay. Technically, it is a marvel to play. But just when it came down to making me feel for these characters the same way that I felt for Joel and Ellie in the first game, it left a lot to be desired. And then its subsequent sort of rain of praise just all seemed a little odd to me. But all in all, though, awards are awards. So, congrats to the Naughty Dog team for still making on a gameplay and accessibility level, um, an absolute masterclass in game development.
Mm-hmm.
But just, maybe a few more narrative passes and someone to wrangle some ideas in will create a game that sort of it has the legs to stand up to the incredible amount of hype that faced it, and expectations,
Yeah.
going into it that had been established by, people who worked on the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't even like they were necessarily unfair in people wanting for things to work a certain way. So
Yeah.
it's I did not much care for it. I felt like with a few minor adjustments, I would have like completely 180'd and liked it a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But as presented, the product, the finished food on the plate, uh, you had to send that one back to the kitchen, chief. It wasn't cooked right.
Of course. All right, Spectre. What do you gotta say about this, Spectre?
Nothing good.
I think I know this one, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely nothing good to say about it. It's just like I say, it's not my game. I've labored this point to death. It's not my game. I don't care unless they're gonna patch in a whole new story and characters and everything. I don't care.
Alrighty then. Well, great. I totally did not see that coming. No, for me, I enjoyed it. It is not, as I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's like Last of Us Part 2 is a great game. Is it a perfect game? No. Is it a masterpiece, as some people have said? No, at least in my opinion. And it has some problems with its narrative. But again, the gameplay is phenomenal. What a beautiful game. Like, holy crap. But this is great. I like this because it's gonna look awesome on PS5. And yeah, like this patch, great. I will say, like, it's just your frame rate, and maybe it doesn't even need like a PS5 like version of the game, because it's just already like it came out near the end of the PS4. So like this patch will probably be enough. I don't think it needs a PS5 like version of this game. But yeah, that is great. That is great. So I'm glad we got out everyone's opinion about that game. Great. And we'll probably be discussing Last of Us Part 2 in the future or whatever. Who knows? Let's move on. Gotta get... There we go. All right. Next topic is that Netflix is looking to make more video games. This is actually from an article from The Information, which is pretty much they don't really cover a lot of like video games, but they cover like more of the entertainment industry. But pretty much what it is that Netflix seeks executive to expand their game efforts. So pretty much what they're doing is that there have been some other Netflix games. There's been like a Stranger Things game, but what they really want to do is that they really want to expand into the video game market, the video game industry regarding that. They very much want like Netflix branded games with their shows or whatever, or like, for instance, like there's other like TV shows or whatever based on, or they can take video games that are already existing, use their IPs, and either use them for their Netflix show or whatever. So Spectre, what do you think about the kind of Netflix getting into the industry of video games for this?
Like they're actually gonna. I'm just kind of confused. They're actually going to be making games, or?
To my knowledge, what I have is that Netflix is pretty much like they have made other they have made some video games, but they want to really, instead of like dipping their toe in, they want to like dive in. They're looking for an executive to head a Netflix game division. Like they want to make games, develop games, use Netflix IPs or reverse, like that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Okay. I was just kind of confused.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, it's too early to tell. I'm not a fan of Netflix in general. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm not going out on much of a limb here to say that I wouldn't be looking forward to what they would be offering. Netflix, they tend to, well, like a lot of companies these days, they tend to really inject their politics into everything. So I wouldn't really be all that into what they have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
How about you, Mark? What do you think?
Um, well, yeah, I agree in that it's much too early to tell. Um, I hope that this isn't just going to turn into, um, hey, would you guys want a Stranger Things video game? Here you
Mm-hmm.
go. And that they use the opportunity to try and do something, bigger,
Mm-hmm.
grander with a bit more sense of scale. But yeah, it's too early to sort of tell, other than, Netflix is continuously trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
someone should probably stop them before you're required to have at least 3 Netflix subscriptions in order to use your own bathroom in your home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, man, like I'll see what comes out, and if it's something that really sort of piques my interest, then yeah, I'll give it all the praise as is warranted. But in the meantime, no, it seems like a bit of a nothing. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
more manipulating the tracks of Hype Train. You
Yeah,
know,
it feels like I would say like Stadia. Like again, Stadia, like Google tried to get into the video game industry and like here's console streaming, and it failed miserably. Um, there like and it just kind of it feels like that where Netflix is like, oh well, our IP, our originals are the talk of the town. Whenever we make a big a Netflix original, that it just becomes the social zeitgeist. Which, mind you, Disney Plus has kind of taken that spot now with like Star Wars, Bad Batch, and WandaVision, and The Mandalorian, and all of the new shows that they do. Like they're the talk of the town now, not Netflix. Um,
Mhm.
but like, would I like to see some Netflix IP? Sure. Like, if they're good, kind of the ones that they've had recently are just okay at best. Um, but with this, I'm just like, it just feels very much you're trying to step into a space that you really don't belong in, and that like you do what you do best. Continue making your like just keep having other directors and producers and everyone just make new TV shows and movies and comedy specials and whatever, cartoons and everything for you guys. You're doing like Netflix is the most popular streaming service next to Disney Plus. Um
Doing gangbusters, man.
mhm. So, yeah, I mean, it's for me I'm just like, oh, okay. Great. That's
This
about it.
this 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 smacks of company with a ton of money wants more money.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. But yeah, I think that is it. I think Spectre, you've said all your piece on this.
Yeah.
All right. All right, and that is everything for the news. Now we have one more big thing to talk about, which this is why we have everyone here. That's why Spectre and Mark are here. So let's begin with our PlayStation conversation.
PlayStation.
All right. So we are a video game podcast. We talk about video games, and we do go down the rabbit hole of politics every so often. But it's normally regarding to like how like video games are microtransactions or whatever it would be. Um, we are not a politics podcast. We don't cover politics. That's not our focus. Um, but there has been some very big news that has kind of been the talk of the town for the past week. Um, and some people are talking about it, some people aren't, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But I very much feel like something that we here at the Brotherhood of Geeks believe in is having people of different thinkings, people of different minds, all coming together to enjoy video games and entertainment and everything like that. And that's why I brought in Spectre and Mark to discuss this whole Palestine/Israel conflict that has happened, and then what happened with IGN. And I know, Mark, you have a lot of information regarding this. Would you like to go ahead and kind of begin with this, or do you want me to kind of lay down the foundation and then kind of go from there?
You can feel free to lay down the foundation because my thoughts are more so an editorial on something that's a bit bigger than just how IGN handled,
Mm-hmm.
their public-facing statements.
Okay.
But I have some greater points to sort of touch on. So you can feel free to sort of
That's fine.
give us the alley and we'll take it home from there.
There we go. All right. So, what has happened is that over the past week, so there's been this like conflict that has been happening with Palestine and Israel, that Israelis have been pretty much pulling people and children out of taking Palestinians out of their homes, and there's been a lot of conflict that has been happening for years over in Palestine and Israel and everything. This has been going on forever. But what has happened over the past week or so is that some people have died and other things like that. And what happened is that IGN put up an article. Now this article doesn't exist anymore. This has been archived. But what IGN put up on their website, it says how to help Palestinian civilians by IGN staff. And I want to make that important that it says by IGN staff. This is what the article said. Quote, Palestinian civilians are currently suffering in great numbers in Jerusalem, Gaza, and West Bank due to Israeli forces. The New York Times reported that most of the deaths so far have occurred in Gaza. We want to highlight the humanitarian crisis in Palestine because while there has been fighting in the region for decades, recent escalations have seen a catastrophic loss of Palestinian lives. Below are charities and organizations on the ground in those areas where you can donate funds to help those most in need. We'll continue to update this article with other ways you can help. And then it kind of goes through all the different like fundings and nonprofit that you could help out. So that's what went up. This article is not on their website anymore at all. And the reason that is because IGN then put out pretty much a public letter, not only to their employees, but then pretty much to the public. It says, employees of IGN, an open letter to leadership at IGN, Ziff Davis, and J2 Global. Ziff Davis and J2 Global are also like parent companies to IGN. They're this is what it says. I'm going to go through the post. So it says, to management of J2 Global and Ziff Davis and the corporate leadership of IGN, we, the undersigned employees of IGN, are appalled by the recent management decision to subvert our editorial autonomy and remove our post-directing aid to the Palestinian civilians currently suffering a a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the West Bank, and Jerusalem. In our original post, we offered our readers ways to support charities that help injured and sick children, supply educational resources and food assistance to victims, and provide emergency medical relief for those wounded or displaced by the conflict. We feel these efforts should not be controversial. All humans deserve access to these basic rights, and it is important for those with means to defer aid in times of humanitarian crisis. Our original post was shared by thousands of people, and because IGN's size and reach, we were able to serve as a leader for much of the rest of the industry to help support those whose lives are torn apart by this conflict. We are proud to be part of the team at a site that was able and willing to offer this level of visibility to such critical humanitarian support for the efforts. The decision to take down the post was made a day and a half after it was published. The takedown took place in the early hours of the morning on a weekend with no communication on its initial authors, the general IGN staff, or to the public as to why it happened. IGN's editorial staff has guidelines about updating content deemed needful of changes, something that we've done multiple times in the past. But wholesale removal of pieces without posting an explanatory statement is expressingly against our usual policy. Finally, more than 12 hours after the issue was first flagged to the border team in our internal Slack, our staff received a late-night email from IGN leadership, well after reasonable working hours for the IGN global team, with the same statement that was to be published publicly on the IGN Twitter account an hour later. There was no indication in the initial email that it would also serve as our official statement on the matter. I apologize. While we are glad to see a sizable donation being made to save the children, we feel the decision to remove the original article and social post, as well as the subsequent statement from management, is not only actively harmful to IGN's public reputation and its employees, but also highly disrespectful to much of its content team and border staff. This statement inaccurately ascribes the reaction to those, quote, across IGN, rather than the members of our upper management team who made the decision, giving a public impression that the decision was made by the editorial staff, despite this being a choice that we did not make collectively and which many of us did not agree with. So pretty much, and the article continues, and I can keep going through this, but it is a long article, and it has like every name on it here. But what happened is that this is a letter that was made pretty much to upper management of IGN, because when that got posted, the original archived article about where you can send fundings and help to Israel, to Palestinians, that got taken down for no reason and whatever. Also, when that article to help the Palestinians was live, they changed their header to the Palestinian flag. It said IGN, and then it had the Palestinian flag up there too, which then that article got taken down. At the same time, they changed the header to Red Cross, like donate to Red Cross. So it kind of just continues of, I'll continue this whole thing. While we are glad to see a sizable donation being made to save the children, we feel the decision to remove the original article and social post, as well as the subsequent statement from management, is not only actively harmful to IGN's public reputation and its employees, but also highly disrespectful to much of its content team across the border. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. Following an IGN-wide meeting this morning, we have come to understand that this was a clear instance of corporate overreach and demonstrated blatant disregard for the most basic standards of journalistic integrity and editorial independence. The business interests of a publication's ownership and its editorial staff should stay separate at all times. Importantly, we feel the latest statement dangerously turns into a matter of supporting innocent civilians facing a humanitarian crisis into a harmful case of, quote, both sides-ism. Helping children and civilians harmed by the horrors of war should be uncontroversial no matter who the two sides are, and is in keeping with IGN's ongoing efforts to highlight causes that are important to our team, such as our support for Black Lives Matter last year and our more recent celebration of AAPI Heritage Month, and joining the call to end AAPI hate. The victims here deserve the same support. Recognize concerns expressed by upper management, but are nonetheless gravely disappointed by the lack of respect shown to our content team and border staff by this matter, and expect our leaders to take responsibility for their actions. We, the undersigned, are calling for an all-hands meeting that includes IGN upper management and anyone at J2 Global who have the hand-on discussion by the end of the week, in which we would like the full transparency, reasoning behind the post removal, so on and so on. So it got removed and everything. I'm not going to go ahead and continue from there. Again, this article is in the sources. This is public. This was very easy to find. I will definitely say I didn't go digging anywhere or anything like that. This has been sourced by other people. And also in our description, we always put our sources of news and everything we talk about. I have also put up multiple YouTube videos. I have 4 different YouTube videos. I have one from Alana Pierce, who used to work for IGN, but now she just does her own thing. She has her own YouTube channel, which I have personally followed. But she talks about her opinions on this. Upper Echelon Gaming, who pretty much is, I would say, a different side. He's very much is a guy from the outside looking in, who has his own opinions on this whole matter. And I feel like he very much did enough research and detail about this to kind of create his own opinion and kind of talk about it in a more middle of the road manner, because he doesn't work for IGN or used to work for IGN. And then I have 2 videos from Kind of Funny Games, which pretty much it's ex-IGN guys. So Greg Miller used to work at IGN, and Tim Geddes, and all of them talking about this. And you can go ahead and watch them there. So with all of that being made, Mark, I'll let you go ahead and continue. I know that was long, but this is a very messy and this is not an easy topic to kind of discuss and to talk about. And I know that was long, but I had to just kind of put that out there. And again, you can go to the sources and read it all along. But with all that being said, Mark, go ahead and begin.
Well, I think when approaching issues that work like this, it is initially refreshing to sort of see IGN go, we done goofed, and it is my hope that whomever decided to speak on behalf of an entire company that operates as pretty much almost like a multi-channel network, where everyone is.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to make one quick point. When I said that when that article was made by IGN staff, that was pretty much pointed as like all of IGN throughout the entire world, not just US, or pretty much what a lot of people believe it was just IGN US. I wanted to put
it could be misconstrued as that very easily, as in like the corporate entity of IGN. Period.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get that out there, as you were.
Is backing one particular side of this conflict. And what I really wanted to get at was, because evidently someone felt strongly about this, and decided to use the IGN platform to address it. And I think that what really has to happen, as it's not quite a full-blown trend yet in games media, but it is happening to escalating scales. It's just this need to use your platform for a what is personally conceived as a moral good, regardless of the purpose of that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there has to be some type of sense when applied to what is the platform I'm using built for, and does this thing that I personally believe in fit within the confines of what this platform was built for? And it's beginning to happen on an increasingly frequent basis,
Mm-hmm.
where people are using the fact that they have this one area where they have a really large voice and are using that really large voice to make a point. And what you get, it's twofold. One, people do see it because you did it on a really, really large public facing thing that a lot of people know about. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people in the gaming sphere know about IGN, Uh, but on the flip side of that, the other side of that coin,
Mm-hmm.
if it has absolutely nothing to do, regardless of its importance or uh, the people's belief in the moral, controversial or non-controversial nature of, helping children in wartime who are in need,
Mm-hmm.
um, you have to consider what the platform is. And it's this sort of disregard for it that just kind of shows like, hey man, like there's incredible conflict journalists out there that are really in the thick of it and covering really heavy, really pertinent stuff. There are jobs out there for you to do that. You should try and get one of those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when you're applying your moral compass to a platform that does not always have room for your moral compass, and like the your thoughts and opinions on matters in the world, you
Mm-hmm.
have to be responsible and respectful of that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's something you agree with or that you particularly enjoy. If you go to a restaurant and you say, "I'd like to order food," but then your waiter comes out and talks to you about video games for 5 hours, and then yeah, the conversation would be really cool, and you could trade gamer tags at the end and maybe play a little bit of video games with each other at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But you never ate,
Mm-hmm.
so why did you go to the restaurant? You know. So I
Yeah.
think that really at the base of it, you have to start, and whether it's within the editorial, corporate infrastructure, which I think personally it would have to be. Because what other body is going to be able to successfully navigate, you know, setting up any type of accountability, this type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But the higher ups in these companies start having everyone know that like, hey, this is a gaming news website, and though personally we may agree or we may disagree,
Mm-hmm.
um, here is not the time or place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the sort of thing that has to be made clear to avoid this type of thing. Because, a while ago, I don't know if you remember, the both of you, but there was that whole Deadspin, stick to sports kerfuffle. Um,
Mm-hmm. Do you remember that, Spectre?
and
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay.
a bunch of writers on Deadspin, which is a part of the same family of sites. It's a sister site to Kotaku, and they proceeded to make a lot of very overtly political, anti-Trump um, articles and reporting during Donald Trump's presidency while it was still going on. And they basically uh, got reprimanded from higher ups going, hey, people aren't responding well to this. This is a sports site. We report on sports. So keep it to sports. Like, stick to sports when you're
Mm-hmm.
writing articles for this sports. And a whole bunch of writers left, and there was like a whole like people really up in their feelings, and well, how could you stifle our speech like this? That we have an obligation. And it's just like I wanted to speak to that sense of obligation,
Okay.
because it allows for people to mismanage a platform that was around before them, that other people helped, you know, build, and that you're just going to use to shout from a soapbox on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there has to be some sort of move against that, because the charities are important and helping people is important.
Mm-hmm.
But I came here to eat at a restaurant,
Yeah.
to circle back to my alley.
Yeah. You came
Um,
to IGN to read about the next video game announcement, the what details on the PS5 or Series X, not about what's been happening in Palestine or whatever, right?
yeah, because like I have places I go when I want to read that. And I
Mm-hmm.
have places I go where I can get very nuanced, well researched, well put together news on
Mm-hmm.
things that are newsworthy. But if
Yeah.
I'm on IGN, like, tell me if Returnal was good. Like, that's the sort of content that I thrives the best on the platform, because you're not trying to all of a sudden jar your audience with this huge tone of whiplash away from video games onto this ongoing civil militarized conflict that's happening, halfway across the world. And then not to mention, um, IGN is not like it has like subsidiary companies that create content that pay a licensing fee to publish that content
Yeah, there's an
on
IGN.
IGN,
Yep, there's an IGN Israel. Yeah.
So, like, with there being a station of people in Israel, of whom has, who work for IGN, and all of a sudden IGN comes out with this letter that says, "Hey, we stand against this country that, or the side of this conflict that you are a part of." You're now, and it's co-signed by the IGN staff, the whole thing, whole corporate shebang.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You've just placed, regardless of your sense of moral, standing, whether you feel you are correct or incorrect, or if it was too soon or too late or too little, you put those people's lives in there,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I wanted to talk more so, less so about, just the conflict itself and IGN's role and how it was handled. That was poor. Um, but I also wanted to talk about, like, hey, what do you have a responsibility to do when something is really wearing on your heart and your mind, and you just
Yeah.
like you have to say something, because in your heart of hearts, like, this is wrong and I shouldn't stand. What do you have the responsibility to do with your platform?
Yeah.
And I feel like this was another big step over that line, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully um, the last, if not heading towards the last faster than before,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just like you're just getting this massive oversight. Because eventually, if there wasn't such a fast acting move, like, and something happened to any of the people who did work for IGN in Israel,
Mm-hmm.
the the blowback corporately on IGN would be 7 million times one person died.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um, it just knowing what you can and can't do, and the time and the place and the season for making um, those types of posts and creating this type of is lost on the people who perpetuate this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I never like seeing, loss of life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never like seeing, people get maimed and hurt grievously.
Yeah.
or anything like that, you
Yeah.
know. Um, Regardless of all the video games one might play, it never made me violent.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm I'm aware that when that's on my heart and I have to speak out about it, there are avenues that I can use that will get me a good amount of reach,
Yeah.
whilst also not breaking any. Uh, I don't want to say like verisimilitude because it's without contradicting the stated, very clear, established intention
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
the room that I'm in. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, opera halls are not built to play dubstep in them.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can, and the acoustics will be crazy, but there's something in the tonality or something in how it's presented that just doesn't work when you put it in different rooms.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there has to be some lessons learned and some rules enforced about platforming, um,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to acknowledge openly what you're doing with your platform. Now I'm going to stop saying platform because it's going to turn into a drinking game. But I did want to touch on that because it had been burning on my mind for a while, and I'm just, dude, like what possesses you to think that here and now is the time to just go full, you know, ATV four-wheeler out of the mall to go
Yeah.
type this on your laptop or your computer at home to blast this out and directly endanger people. Like where was the forethought? Like did
Yeah.
no one check this? Did no one ask any questions? Was there just a slow golf clap and they just left you to your devices? Like it it
Yeah.
it it boggles my mind, and I'm trying to use humor as to act as a bit of like levity for an
Yeah. No,
otherwise pretty serious
I, oh,
situation.
yeah, most definitely. I get you there.
Um, but it's just like you have a responsibility when you walk in a room,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever role you have in that room, no matter
Yeah.
what it is or how serious or not serious it may be.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're a CEO of a company, you have a responsibility when you walk into that company. If you're just a dude going to a party and someone asks you to bring drinks, you now have a responsibility to that house party to bring drinks. Like there's you have to know why you're in the room you're in and play that to the best of your ability. And if you want to do things that are outside of the time and place that you are in, then you should find a new place and time
Mm-hmm. And
that is more indicative to what you want to accomplish.
yeah. And we will definitely start discussing that, but I want to get to Spectre about his opinion on this because Spectre is very opinionated about his own opinions. So, Spectre, what do you have to say about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fascinating. I mean, it kind of going off of his point there too. I mean, it's almost like, I mean, just put this in any other context. I mean, it's people that want to talk about, that their, I mean, their profession is to talk about video games. That's their job,
Mm-hmm.
is to talk about video games, and that's their primary focus. But then it seems like every chance that is gotten, it's like, oh, let's shift and talk about this political subject I'm interested in, this or that. It's like, why don't you get a job in politics or something like that? I mean,
Mhm.
go in a different direction with your life. I mean, it'd be like, I mean, like take my job for example, like for an absurd example. I work in the the retail sector, we'll say, and everything, and
Mm-hmm.
as vague as possible there. But I mean, it'd be like if I went into my job every day and say, well, instead of focusing on reports and what it takes to make a store run properly or stores to run properly, things like that. Instead, I'm very interested in video game development, and we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to relate everything back to that. People would look at me like I was crazy. They'd be like, what are you talking about? What does this have to do? Like, okay, it's great you're interested in video games, you want to talk about developing a video game, but why don't you go develop a video game? Why are you here? It's just I mean, you could take that example of anything. I mean, it's just absurd to me that if these people are so obsessed with it, go get a job in actually in politics. Then I think you'd be much happier.
Yeah.
Than what they're doing right now. And I think there's a warranted backlash from a lot of people whenever this stuff comes up, and it comes up all the time. It's like, we're sick of hearing about this. We're sick of being preached to by people. It doesn't matter where you stand on things. That you could be. It doesn't matter really where. That's kind of irrelevant. It's just we're sick of being battered over the head with stuff, and that's where it kind of creates rifts in the fandom of gaming, really. So I mean, the issue itself is kind of, I mean, we could talk about the issue. That's interesting to me, but I mean, I think the issue itself is kind of immaterial here in terms of what I'm just trying to relate this to my own life, and I mean, if I went off and if I wrote an article and I posted it on behalf of my company and said this is my company's opinion on X, Y, and Z, I would be fired if I did that, or I would be heavily reprimanded for it. You can't just go out and if they really wanted to do this, they should have. There's a couple of different ways they could have done it. They could have gotten approval from the higher ups to make sure this was something that could be done on the company website, and there wouldn't have been any kind of blowback to it. They could have done that, or even easier, they could have gone on their personal social media and raised awareness on there. But instead they wanted to use their platform and their audience to draw attention to an issue that is not related to gaming and not even remotely related to gaming. And justifiably so. I think the company kind of slammed down on him here, and like I said, that has nothing to do with the issue itself. That's a whole separate debate. It's a whole separate topic. But it's like I said, it boggles my mind. It feels like I feel like these people are just they're so unhappy with what they're doing. Go get a job doing something you actually really want to do. I mean, it seems silly to me. Like for me for example, I love talking about video games, but when I want to talk about video games, I talk to my friends. I come on a podcast like what I'm doing right now.
That's what we hear.
Yeah.
Yay!
You know what I don't do? I don't go up to customers, or I don't go up to when we're having conference calls or Zoom meetings at my job. I don't go on there and say, "Hey, what do you guys think of all that expense report I just did and everything? That's great, and and we're doing this, we're opening, we're talking to this vendor or whatever, blah blah blah." But what I really want to talk about right now is Mass Effect Legendary Edition. That's what I really want to talk about. So we're not going to they would think I'm nuts. Like, what would be like? What does this have to do with anything? It's just I don't know. It's just so silly to me. This stuff just keeps coming up. It's gotten so much more. I think it's safe to say it's become a lot more blatant, and it's something that just seems to crop up a lot more within the last 5 to 10 years or so. It's become such a thing. I don't remember this. I'm sure it was there, but I don't recall this being like a big thing in the. I mean, like going back to like the 90s or early 2000s. I mean, the discussion about the intersection of politics and video games was actually it was usually organic. It was talking about things like Doom and Mortal Kombat and this are being brought up in political discussions, and because there's fears of violence about like what is the Israel-Palestine conflict have to do with video games, and even how can you stretch that to? It doesn't make any sense at all, And I'm not saying that organizations can't support charities or support causes and blah blah blah, but it's like you better make sure that your higher ups are checking off on things before, because clearly somebody didn't get the memo here, and they shut this down, and there's a lot of drama that has resulted from this. So I feel like the people that were setting this up didn't do their homework. They didn't check with the people that made decisions, and they got blasted for it as a result, and it caused all this drama. So yeah, I mean, like I said, really, in a way, we're not really talking about the actual Israel-Palestine conflict or our opinions on that or anything. It's separate from from the actual issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess does everyone disagree with that? I mean, like that's what it comes down to here. I mean, does anyone think that the people that put this up were in the right? Like they should have just gone over their company's head here and just, I mean, like I guess, I mean, for me this seems just kind of absurd.
So let me go ahead and say what I think, because I went ahead and laid everything down and let you two speak your opinions. Now let me speak mine. First, I very much do agree that this could have been avoided. This whole IGN kind of making this article and then get taken down, and the whole debacle regarding that could have pretty much been mostly avoided if IGN, which the article says by IGN staff, which be all of IGN throughout the entire world, is choosing the side of the Palestinians. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But that's what it says because it's IGN staff. But it's more like the IGN staff US. So that could have been avoided where if IGN proper, IGN US wanted to go ahead and put this article up and say, hey, support, here is where you can do nonprofit and here help the Palestinians. You could have said, IGN US, if that's what you truly believe. So then that way you can do that. There is some problems with that also, because then, US is sticking their neck out. Like it's rough. I very much do agree with you guys that they shouldn't have put the Palestinian flag up on their header. This article very much was like, we stand with the Palestinians. And I'm like, I'm here to read about video games. I'm here to read about, what you pre-order bonuses and what collector's edition should I go with, or, articles on Returnal or on Ratchet and Clank or whatever.
You're there to eat a meal at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You have an expectation of why you're there based on what that brand established itself to be to
mm-hmm.
everyone.
I want to make it clear too. It doesn't matter where you stand with it has nothing to do with where you stand with them on this issue or whatever issue they come up with. I just feel like they could put anything up there, and they often have. I think you were mentioning before they had
Black Lives Matter and
stuff up there, and I mean you can put anything up there you want, and I feel like that's like I said, it's if you want to do that, go make a website in support of that. Don't drag that into other stuff. I mean, it's just I think I just don't want to hear that. That's why I don't go to websites be like IGN or Kotaku or Polygon or even Destructoid gets on my nerves a lot of times. I mean, with these kind of this posturing, this political posturing that they do.
And sorry, I'll let you finish. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, it's not because I agree or disagree or whatever. That's irrelevant. It's just I want the focus to be on video games. If you're going to talk about politics, it better somehow intersect with video games. It better be something like
the 6 Days in Fallujah thing. I felt like the political conversation around 6 Days in Fallujah felt appropriate in the context of that video game conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but the examples in which it is appropriate are so few and far between, and because there was absolutely 0% of anything that had something to do with video games or the development or enjoyment of video games.
Yeah.
In this very strongly worded stance and support message for a very real, constantly developing uh, hot button international conflict.
Yeah.
It just there was no connective tissue whatsoever, and I think that I think we're pretty much in agreement rather roundly that like if I know I have in my own personal time, you know, a stance on the matter that I believe wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going
Yeah.
to discuss it here? No, because this is a podcast about
Video games, but and
games.
look, like for instance, like I haven't been following the whole 6 Days in Fallujah, but I very much am aware of how a lot of the video game articles that I have heard about or have seen have been more politically charged than talking about the gameplay, the story, on how these developers are very much taking real life experiences of these these army men who dealt with this like in real life, like what happened, and using these stories to create the gameplay or whatever it would be. But no, there's more politics involved with it. The one article, I'll bring up the one that I remember. I remember when Far Cry 5 was coming out, and like Far Cry 5 is in the US and it's in Montana, and like it's a bunch of this cult that's taking over this tiny little town in it's Hope Country, Montana, and everything like that. And people saw the trailer, and like you saw articles talking about how, oh, this is about gun control and what we should like, and that kind of thing. Like, how about it's about gun control and anti-Trump and all, like, oh yeah, the bad guys, they're far right and they're whatever. And then the game comes out and people are reviewing it, and in the review, like, they knock down points not because of the gameplay sucked or the story didn't matter or whatever, which actually the story was pretty good and the gameplay was phenomenal, but like the whole reason that they docked off points off of their verdict or whatever was because they didn't talk about gun control enough, and it wasn't you didn't talk about politics more. And I'm like, and because Far Cry 5 is from Ubisoft was like, that's not our point. Our point isn't to go ahead and talk about gun control. That's not what this game is about.
Well, I mean, Ubisoft is very overtly political. And I mean, they don't shy away from putting politics into their games.
No, I'm not saying. Well, yeah. Well, like look at the Tom Clancy games, but like what I'm saying though is that like Ubisoft, like, and even I played the game. There was never a point in time when I played that game top to bottom. I platinumed that game. There was never a point in time when I played Far Cry 5 when I was like going like, oh yeah, no, guns are bad, and like that. Never. If anything, I'm like, wow, I can blow up stuff with all these guns. What? Like, there were so many like politically derived articles about Far Cry 5 and how it wasn't anti-conservative or anti-whatever enough, which makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. So the thing is with me is that, like, I'm here to go ahead and read about video games. I come to your site to go ahead and find news about video games and try to find the most, like, middle of the road that I possibly can about video games. And yes, there's tons of articles about, why blank, blank, blah, blah, blah. The one thing I will say is that the article itself, I actually don't mind. I don't have a problem if a company goes, we want to support this. We want to support, this thing, and we want to help. But it was, the article they put up was so, sorry, I'm trying to figure out my words so I can word this properly.
Like polarizing.
No, it was very much, this is our stance. It very much was like, we don't recognize the rest of IGN of the world. IGN staff, like, do you remember that you have IGN Israel and there's a IGN China and IGN Japan and all like there are IGNs on the other side of the world that are dealing with this, like IGN Israel, and you're pretty much doing like, hey, here's the Palestinians. Like, I don't mind if a company goes, here are ways you can help this thing out, whether it's, you know, uh, cancer awareness or, you know, whatever, cancer awareness, autism awareness, or, you know, you can the fundings to other nonprofits or whatever, you know.
I think of what the delineating factor with that is the active nature of whatever you're attempting to benefit. Like if we're like donating something to like children's cancer funds, there's a sort of detachment from the human element, in that, oh, you're helping kids fight this disease. And when I say detachment from a human element, I'm not saying that like those types of things don't have a human element.
Yeah.
It's just like when there's an active conflict going on and both sides feel like they're in the right and there's all kinds of stuff and people are saying, all kinds of people are issuing statements and there are human rights violations and all kinds of crazy stuff, and that's what you want to spotlight. It's still evolving, it's still changing, it's still metamorphosizing, if that's a word, and into a different thing every day. And so to come out and be like, this is our stance on this right now, all of us at once, is irresponsible,
What about
I think.
what about I'll ask you, Mark? What about, like, for instance, like Black Lives Matter? Like they very much were like, Black Lives Matter, bam! Like, we're like header, and that's definitely like in video. That's like everywhere. So like, what do you think about that? Could that be kind of could you use that example of Black Lives Matter similar to what has happened with Israel and Palestine, or are
Uh,
those two different examples or two different things?
well, for me, as a black man, uh, I feel as though when you're going to make statements like that, there has to be uh, a sense of what what are we attempting to put forward, and what are the heroes and the villains, the protagonists and the antagonists in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And when those lines are a lot more cut and dry, it makes it more palatable for your sort of average person to get down with the message that you're putting forward. Do I still think that what I have been like, oh yeah, this multi-million dollar company, and maybe this is just me being jaded, but like
Mm-hmm.
this multi-million dollar company is really like super caring about my plight to the point where, oh, we changed our online presence, put it on there so that way we can get our pats on the back and that type of deal, like. And maybe that's just me being jaded because
Mm-hmm.
like I've seen the sort of corporate slacktivism a lot in the past,
Mm-hmm.
even coming from people who individually may really genuinely believe it. But it's like, if you're not gonna, if there's not gonna be meaningful action on that front, then like
Mm-hmm.
why say it? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and like I personally, if I was at IGN, I wouldn't have put it up there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that can be like kind of like an almost blasphemous thing. How could you know? Yes, of course. Black lives do in fact matter. My life matters a great deal to me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, there's responsibilities to the platform later on, and just because you have a platform
doesn't mean that it is the platform for you to exercise every single thing that comes to your mind and to your heart, regardless of how correct it may feel to you or how correct it may actually literally be. Sometimes you just have to know what you're giving to the world and what it may mean and how it could impact the people around you. There was another thing I forget. I think it was Bethesda, I think, where it was Pride Month, and they had like pride flags for all the socials, but except for in certain countries where
that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
where being queer is like still not legal, and there's the dire repercussions for it. Like if there's the point where I'm queer myself, so it's like you don't have to, like, if there's going to be that level of uneven application across the board, it just don't.
That's why I think a better policy. It's just across the board. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's Israel Palestine or Black Lives Matter or Pride Month or if they want to have whatever it is. I just think it's easier. I'd rather just have a blanket policy or blanket expectation that let's keep. We don't need to talk about this. Let's keep the focus on video games. That's what we're here for. If we want to have a political discussion, let's go to a political forum and talk about it.
But
it's.
No, go ahead, finish up. Go ahead.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like people just don't want to hear this.
Well, the thing is, like, you could hear the argument of, well, we have a platform. We're the biggest, like for IGN, we're the biggest video game media outlet out there. We have a platform that we could use to help people. Why shouldn't we use this to help people, regardless whether it's Black Lives Matter, Pride, Palestine / Israel, whatever? The argument that you would hear, and I'll bring up, is that you have a platform. We could even use our platform to talk about, Black Lives Matter or whatever. We're going to focus on video games because that's what we're here for. But for example, like,
hey, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right there.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop you right in it because every answer to the answer to every question you could possibly put forward, you just answered. Because that's what we're here for.
Explain.
Where it's like, man, like I showed up here, like I'm not going to have certain conversations in certain rooms with certain people. Because it's not what we're here. Like, when I have places to go, and we all have places to go, where we can have much greater impact. We can get much more done. We can move resources to the places where it needs to be far more effectively and with much less blowback, backlash, all kinds of stuff. For stuff that seems like it's just a layup, like, oh, this is just the most morally correct thing ever. How could anyone be mad at this? And people will still find the time and the energy to be mad at it.
Oh, I agree. And that, like, that's my stance as Brett.
Even if you have an audience, like I said, there's a couple of problems with this too. It's for one, your audience may not want to hear it. They may not be, if they're following you. We've seen this. There should be a name for this. It's like a phenomenon you see on YouTube where you're watching somebody and then all of a sudden maybe their content has nothing to do with like politics, for example. Then all of a sudden they start veering into it and pivoting into it out of nowhere. There should be like a name for this phenomenon, but it's just even if you have an audience, it doesn't mean that your audience wants to hear about this stuff. It doesn't mean that it's appropriate. It doesn't. If anything, ironically, you're working against it. Like you're not winning hearts and minds by jamming things down people's throats,
Mm-hmm.
and bringing
And
things up where they don't belong.
and I want to make this abundantly clear to everyone watching is that we're not trying to tell you one way or the other. We're just here discussing it, and whatever you believe and whatever you think, that is your opinion. And I want to just make sure that I put that out there. And that's what I began with when we started this PlayStation conversation, is that all three of us have different thinkings of different minds and come from different backgrounds. And that's why we're a brotherhood, is that we're different and we think differently, but we all come together because we enjoy something, which is video games and entertainment and geek culture and all of that kind of stuff. And I want to make it abundantly clear that we are just discussing this and kind of talking about our opinions and what this kind of means, whether personally or in kind of what we think outwardly to the outside world when it comes to like this. Well, like, what the video game industry, thinks about this and whatever. I just want to make that abundantly clear that we are not trying to tell you one way or the other what to think.
Yeah, no, we're not IGN. We're not we're not trying to tell you how to we're not trying to tell you how to think. Like I said, we're really I'm here to talk for one reason and one reason only, and that's to talk about video games. If we wanted to talk about politics, we would make a politics podcast.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
great. We could do that too. And then people that way you know what happens, and everyone's happy, because then that's what they should do. They should make IGN politics. And you have their own little website, and that's all they talk about is politics. They could have every flag, every color they want of the rainbow up on their banner. They could put anything they want up there. They could talk about anything they want, and people would all be happy and fine with it.
IPN.
They can make their own little echo chamber website that nobody would go to, and that would be. That would be great. Then there'd be no complaints from me.
So for me, for like closing words is, this was incredibly stupid on IGN's part, and it IGN corporate, the higher ups took down the article, and there are people who are upset about this. I'm not here to go ahead and say that what they feel is wrong or right. But with how it was worded and how it was handled and everything like that, it was just handled wrong. And my whole takeaway is that we are here. We go to your site to talk about, discuss, or read about video games or movies or TV shows or whatever it is that the site talks about. Which IGN, it's video games and movies and TV shows. I'm not here to hear about politics. I'm not here to hear about how Far Cry 5 didn't talk about anti-gun control enough or whatever.
I have an interesting kind of query here for everybody. I guess kind of a question for everybody to answer. If there was a magical button that could take us back to a time of like the early 90s or the mid 90s, or even really the early 2000s, where we could go back to when video game news outlets, in the 90s it was magazines and things like that, and then early 2000s we had our websites and stuff like that kind of forming. If we could go back to that, where politics was really kind of something that was not really discussed in video games. It was just something that, unless it was actually relevant to the topic, like the hearings on Doom and video game violence and stuff like that. If you could press a magic button and we could go back to that, what would you press that button?
Marco, I'll let you answer first.
Where it was just sort of wholly separated.
Yeah, kind of like how it used to be, and you go to IGN and Kotaku and Polygon, any video game website, and the only things you'll see will be video game related news and video game related opinions.
Yeah, I think I would. I feel like my personal convictions don't change if I go somewhere with the intention of engaging with a specific media. and if I just didn't have to worry about, what I ended up being exposed to, and not necessarily, and I feel like that's a improper wording, worrying about being what I'm being exposed to. I feel like if I have to deal like with not getting the content that I showed up to receive, uh, purely for someone else's, um, what can feel like moral grandstanding,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then I feel like I would garner more enjoyment out of the content that I did get. Not saying that, there isn't legitimately good content coming out on some of these websites
Yeah.
now, but it's just I never know whether or not I'm going to get a in-depth earnest review on a piece of kit or a video game, or if someone's going to tell me that console triggers their, trip trypophobia, or like it's just, there's all kinds of other things that are just being involved
Yeah.
in, me partaking in a particular form of media that just are so not pertinent to that form of media. And I think that if your personal convictions need for, if you need for $1 million companies that only care about your engagement with their product to, like, if you need for them to validate your personal convictions, up front, like front and center, then I think that there should be some reflection inwardly as to the strength of your personal.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that you don't believe them, uh, but it's just like they should be able to stand regardless of whether or not, X company says you're correct in believing that thing you believe. No,
Yeah.
it,
Um, for me, because would I press the button to go ahead and do that? For me, I kind of wish that there was a third button, because like having it. The thing is, it's the outright, almost screaming in your face of hearing the politics or personal whatever, like the example that Mark gave was, of someone's fear of a console having, you know too many vents, or
holes
yeah,
in the top. Yeah.
yeah. That doesn't make any sense, and that's how your review is, and like how does that relate to the actual system? I think it's I don't mind. I th- I don't mind if there is a time and a place to talk about politics, like as Mark said. You go to a restaurant to go get food. You're there to get food. Um, but I don't want to go ahead and take away like politics entirely, as in like, okay, you can't speak your own opinion, because that, like, sadly politics has invaded every single aspect of our entire lives now. There's just no way to escape it. um I'm not here to read or hear your personal beliefs on whether it is this game good because it matched your political theories or behaviors or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. What I care about is, like, is the gameplay good? Is the story fantastic? The graphics good? Is it playable? Um, that's what I'm here for. But I also don't want to go ahead and take away people, because people's politics is the I very much sit in the middle, lean left. That, like, I very much am a middleman. I like hearing from both sides, that kind of thing. So I don't want to rip that away completely and entirely, but I'm not here to go ahead and hear, as I said, I use the Far Cry 5 example of like why Far Cry 5 is a bad game because it didn't talk about anti-Trump or anti-gun control.
I feel like you should, like, refocus on the question though, 'cause the question that was asked was
When I press the
when
button,
when you press the buttons, you went to specifically gaming media. There was nothing in that gaming media that didn't pertain to video games.
yeah, I probably would. Because I get frustrated when I saw that and I kind of went like, why is this here when with the whole IGN thing? So
Yeah,
yeah, I
I think
probably
it's just,
would.
it's just a distraction from the topic, and and I don't say, obviously, like I said, I'm not saying this just as someone that because I typically disagree with the political stances. I mean, it's no secret that video game journalism, it by and large comes from when they do talk about politics, which is often, it comes from a very left wing, you could almost say far left perspective.
Hmm.
And obviously that is at odds with my perspective. And I'm not just saying, what I'm trying to say is I don't want to divorce video games and politics just because the topics that are discussed in these websites are I find repugnant. It would be the same thing if, like, let's pretend we lived in a world where Kotaku and Polygon and IGN were overtly right wing, and every other article was something that was pro right wing in some capacity. I still would find that obnoxious. I still would find that completely at odds of what I'm looking for in this particular aspect of news. I'm looking for information on video games and opinions and thoughts on video games. It doesn't matter if they're political view of the person that agrees with me, or a person that that's making the article agrees with me or not.
Hmm.
I mean, and I can think of YouTubers and video game pundits or reviewers or commentators that have politics that are very much the opposite of mine in a lot of ways, and I still enjoy their content because they don't focus on politics.
Hmm.
Like one of my favorite YouTubers for discussions of video games actually is Errant Signal, and he's overtly left wing. He mentions it. He doesn't leave any room for confusion, but he doesn't bring that up as a topic in his videos. His videos are deep, thoughtful, explorative dives into a game or a series of games, and that's really what he focuses on. Laser focuses on. If all he talked about was politics in games, then I wouldn't really be as interested in it.
I agree. I agree.
I guess it's become so, like you said, politics has become so pervasive at this point that it feels like it's unavoidable. It feels like it's there is a lot of content out there discussing how political games have become, and that that type of discussion really wouldn't exist 15-20 years ago, because you would you go back to games in the 90s, and it's hard to say, like, oh well, Doom is clearly right wing, or Doom is clearly this. I mean, you could make that argument, but it's just you wouldn't have as much to go on really as you do now.
Pro war anti-Satanist propaganda.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but
Huzzah!
I understand you can't, at this point we can't really put the genie back in the bottle. It's just going to keep going this way.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, what I think, these people have to realize when they make articles like this, a lot of people are just rolling their eyes, and it's just like they're not winning sympathy. This is performative to some degree. I think these people largely just I question their commitment to their causes a lot, and I think a lot of this is performative. A lot of this is for likes and to politically grandstand, as we said. So I really do question if they have their actual conviction to carry through on a lot of these things.
Yeah, I very much was just like, why is this here? Any final words from you, Mark?
Man, I just came here for the video game.
Me too.
Well said.
I think that is the correct way to end this. We have come here for the video games. We've come here for PlayStation. So guys, thank you so much for watching. This is a very deep, very heavy, and messy topic to discuss. And I very much hope that with what you have heard, you have been open-minded. Whether you agree with us or not, we would love to hear from you in the comments and kind of what your opinion on this situation and just kind of video games media, and politics and how that has just melded together recently. Whether you agree or disagree, and even if you disagree with us, we would love to hear it. That's what we want. We want everyone who agrees, disagrees, or sits in the middle. We want to hear from you guys. We are open to you guys. Whether you like us or don't, that's okay. So please let us know in the comments what you thought about all we have discussed today. But guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/Brotherhood of Geeks. Like, comment, share, subscribe, tell all your buddies, tell everyone you know, tell everyone you don't know, and tell them about this topic if you found us, exciting, funny, whatever it would be. Please continue to follow us and subscribe to the channel and like our videos. Also, press the bell icon. That way, whenever we put up a video, you know we put up a video. You can also follow us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/The Brotherhood of Geeks. You can also follow us on Twitter at Dualshock'd BOG. That's the name of our PlayStation podcast, Dualshock'd BOG. And then you can also follow us on Twitch when we stream at twitch.tv/Brotherhood of Geeks. And yeah, I know you're going to be doing more stuff for us, aren't you, Mark? You're now kind of more part of the team than just a special guest.
Yeah. You slowly whittled away at me until I've agreed and acquiesced.
That was the plan. But I know you also do other work outside of what you do for the Brotherhood. So is there any social media places that people can get in contact with you, whether it's for us or for other things?
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Dennison, MisterDennison. It's the D in Smart Mark D. Yeah, there you'll find me tweeting about professional wrestling and comic books and the art that I'm making and graphic design and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to get in touch with me on a more professional level, you can follow me on my Instagram, which I am presently building up. It's m80.fineworks. There I'll be posting some fancy art and all kinds of other cool drawings and things that I end up doing. Not really on it right now because I'm a new internet personality, but you can get it on the ground floor and see some cool stuff in the process. So yeah, man, that's all the places you can find me.
Awesome.
Right now on the internet.
Awesome. That's great. I'm glad. I'm glad to have you as part of this, and I'm very excited to see your review for Resident Evil Village.
Yeah, I'm about to make people mad.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about this. I can't wait. So that will be exciting. But yeah, do you have any last words, Spectre?
No, I mean, it's, like I said, a very interesting topic, and I am aware of the seeming contradiction where I do try to, I do tend to bring up politics in games a lot, but I think I do that from a place of it's regretful that I have to bring that up. I wish we could just go back to the 90s and just talk about video games, and the most controversial thing back then was whether or not you were a Nintendo fan or a Sega fan.
Yeah.
That was really the that was a better time, I think, in a lot of ways. We have great games now. We have great graphics and controls and better ways to play with each other, but we've kind of regressed in terms of how we actually can talk about these things. So yeah, but no, I mean, with that all out of the way, I have a lot of lot of stuff I'm reviewing and videos and stuff coming up. So there's a lot of content.
All right, well, that's great. I'm excited to see what all of us are going to be doing very, very soon with all the new content that we're going to be making. But guys, that is everything. So then, over on the left, that's going to be, go ahead and say your name, Spectre.
Why am I on the left?
I don't know. You're just over there. That's where you've been placed. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Spectre.
There we go. And over here on the right.
It's Big Papa Pump, Mark Dennison.
There you go. And I'm Brett J. Rasmussen. And as always, live to play, play together. We'll see you guys next time.
Later.